The first bit of advice I would give to any photographer at the time and that this geomagnetic storm was just beginning and you watch the tendrils through the sky, and this image could well be a world first. So its own personal journey to connect with the stars. So before you know it, fingers crossed.
Hello and welcome to Camera Central Podcast. Today I have Josh Dury with me, and we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff and some stuff that you've actually been up to recently. So take it away. What do you do?
Well, thank you very much, Stuart, for having me. So I'm what is called a landscape astrophotographer. So I have this curiosity of taking photographs of the night sky and documenting our place within the universe. So just to give your listeners a bit of a background, having images that were endorsed by NASA, Apollo 11, the European Space Agency, just the list is extensive, really, and what's happened in this past year.
Yeah. That's got to be like, in terms of like somebody actually being an astro landscape photographer, I'm not one of them, but I wish I was. That's like bucket list right there, isn't it? Apollo, NASA, that's all those sort of, how does it feel to actually have that as part of your repertoire as a astro landscape photographer?
It's a surreal experience, Stuart, mainly because I started my journey back when I was 7 years old. And so it took me for an education, a degree, eventually graduating at UWE, so University of West of England. And all that time, I had these dreams and ambitions. And as visual creators, we work so hard to try and hit a goal. And then, it was during lockdown, so in 2020, the pressure just got too much. And so I eventually gave up astrophotography for the best part of 6 months. But it's when you have that resurgence to get back into something. It took one trip up to the Outer Hebrides in Scotland to capture this beautiful stone circle, which is called the Callanish Stones. This photograph was known as Enigma of the North, shortlisted in Astronomy Photographer of the Year, and since then, back in 2022, it's been a million miles an hour. So to then see these endorsements being picked up, I thought, wow, this is honestly a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
One extreme to the other is the
One
best way
extreme to
of
the other.
describing it.
So, where has your journey taken you? Of course, that photo got you back in there. Is it on your site actually?
It is, yes. So when it's showed up on the website, it's a beautiful turquoise blue image and captures, there's that one in particular
Okay.
with the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that being there under what's called a Bortle Class 1 sky, the darkest you can get, and there it is, there's Enigma of the North. It really was a mind-blowing experience, and what has launched from that. So in terms of recent projects, Stuart, I can talk about what happened on April the 8th last year. So we had a total solar eclipse that was visible across the eastern
Right.
side of the United
Yeah.
States. And so I tried flying out to Dallas in Texas for it,
Yeah.
only to find that my connection from Bristol Airport to Dublin was cancelled via a storm 2 days before the eclipse.
Oh my god.
Panic is setting in
Yeah.
by this stage, and so then the day before, American Airlines got us onto this flight for Dallas, and before you know it, you're photographing a particular eclipse, which is the most watched in humanity,
Yeah.
just by population density across the states, and just the area was huge for it. The buzz, the energy of it all, and luckily the skies remained clear.
What do you think about the stars is so special, and why do you think, as a species in general,
Hmm.
we look up?
I think it's to do with our place amongst the stars, Stuart. So when you take these images, even noticeably with the work I've done on Rapa Nui, Easter Island, to see the quality of these skies and the depths of our Milky Way, when you see that, yes, instinctively you think, is there life amongst the stars?
Yeah.
So again, it went back to this root of being a 7-year-old again, thinking about these television programs I used to watch, which are about the planet Mars. So each time I go out and take photos of the night sky, there is that little niggle in the back of my mind to think, is there a distant galaxy or a nebula out there where life really could exist? I'm certain that there
Well,
is.
I'm one of those people that thoroughly believe, like, we exist. There's got to be some form of life out there, at
Yeah,
least to some
we
certain
share the
extent,
same thought.
be it intelligent or otherwise. But that's a whole other conversation we can get very deep into. But yeah, so So you said you started at 7. What was the story there? Was it your family getting you into it? Was it just
It was
how?
all self-driven. I just remember watching this children's television program
Yeah,
back in the day, and it was about the planet Mars. And so I thought, can you actually see these objects in
mm,
the night sky? And of course you can, but I didn't have a telescope then. So it was only when my parents bought me my first telescope, I thought, this is revolutionizing my view of something so complex, the universe. And then you point it at that time to Jupiter, which
yeah,
was visible in the sky, and then you can see the moons surrounding the planet, which are the Galilean moons.
yeah.
And I was so excited by that prospect that, I got one of these webcam imagers that you put into your telescope.
Okay.
And, the quality was poor by today's standards. But I think for anybody, any of your listeners
Mm,
tuning into the podcast, that you have to start somewhere. Like there's that catalyst that
yeah.
makes you start out. And I think that for me was a really important moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I don't know if you've watched the movie Soul from thing. It was the Spark, I guess, was it? Yeah. But fascinating. So, of course, when it comes from someone like me, like I've never done astrophotography, kind of, how would you recommend someone looking to start? What tips would you give them in order to get into it, or like planning, or
Mm, I would say with astrophotography or night photography, as it's also known, that it's definitely a big learning curve as opposed to daytime
Mm,
photography. So you're adapting to new environments all of the time. So whether it's using longer exposures, higher ISOs, and very wide apertures. So I'd say first, don't go mad about having the latest camera equipment. You don't need it
mm,
necessarily. Start with what you have and then build your way up,
yeah,
because every step you take then helps you appreciate taking photos of the stars.
yeah.
But I would certainly suggest a very sturdy, durable tripod. If you do have windy conditions at night when the skies are clear, when you're utilizing, say, a 10-second exposure, you don't want your tripod to be blown around.
Yeah.
So then you're keeping a steady tripod and getting some really nice, sharp exposures.
So go away from using a travel tripod. So if you actually,
Yes.
'cause I guess that kind of adds kind of like a harder aspect to it because you're going to have to take up these big, heavy, clunky tripods.
Yeah.
Like, is your tripod carbon fiber?
It is carbon
It is
fiber.
actually carbon fiber. I
Yes.
thought you would be an aluminium.
I've done that in the past, and let's say when it gets to -14 or
Oh,
whatever,
yeah, yeah,
and your hand freezes to the
yeah, yeah.
tripod leg, I thought, no, I'm not doing that
Has
again.
that happened
It
before?
has done in
Oh
the
my god.
past, yeah.
To be fair, I guess that is one bonus of actually carbon fiber with it. Like
Even,
and I hadn't
yeah,
thought of that. To be fair,
yeah.
but yeah. So like, what's the worst kind of conditions you've been in? Because like
Mm,
this kind of work is about really,
yeah.
and opposed to a lot of other kinds of photography, it's dedication through and through,
Mm,
and it's only for one, maybe two images.
mm.
What's kind of like the conditions you've been in before, or
Yeah, that's an interesting one. The first one that comes to mind, Stuart, is Tromsø in Norway.
yeah,
So, of course, a bucket list for, I'm pretty sure, any budding photographer,
yeah.
which is to photograph the Northern Lights. So, when you touch down in Tromsø, to be greeted with -40 degrees centigrade conditions, and you're driving on 1 or 2 foot of ice in a
Yeah,
4x4 vehicle, and you just see this snow ice studded
yeah,
landscape. It was quite an eye opener at the time,
yeah,
but
definitely.
only to arrive, to our location at the time, and this geomagnetic storm was just beginning. And you watch the tendrils through the sky, and then eventually it turned into pillars and
Mm.
beautiful green curtains. It was fantastic.
I've been lucky enough to experience the Northern Lights in Iceland, only
Nice.
very briefly. And it was um they grade it weirdly, don't they? I think it was a level 6.
Yeah.
That's so it's like extremely likely.
Yeah.
Um
KP6 is a really good one.
and I think what people don't understand when it comes to Northern Lights is actually how visible they are
Yes,
to the
that's very
naked eye.
true.
They're actually,
Mm-hmm.
they're a lot darker than what people
Yeah.
say. Sorry, just thought I'd add that in there. But they are something else to behold. To
Mm.
be fair, um, talking about that. Did you manage to get any photos during the Northern Lights in Wales?
I sure did,
I
yes.
I I,
So
I was expecting so.
there was an instance actually on New Year's Day this year, actually. So we had some clear skies down in southern Wales.
Yeah,
That was where the clear skies were at that time. So just to hop on over from the M4 over to you guys and to capture it from the Harold Stones.
yeah,
So you could see this beautiful, what's called the SAR arc, stretching through the sky, a very vivid red. So when you see something which is quite abnormal to show in the night sky
yeah,
like that, especially from southern Wales and southern England as well,
yeah.
it really just shows the scale of this period of solar maximum. So when we get to see views like this with really intense storms coming off from the sun.
Mm.
But that particular evening, I'll never forget Friday, the 10th of May. That is plastered across my forehead, just how good the quality skies were then and the colours of the rainbow. It was just unreal, surreal,
Mm.
alien, I want to say.
So are these the eclipse shots from last
That's
year?
right, yep. So this is what I've termed the Lone Star Eclipse. So just learning about local geography as well, Stuart, it added to this story of what are you photographing?
Yeah.
So it's when I learned during this visit that the count or state, or I was going to say county, of Texas is known as the Lone Star State.
Is it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. And so when we're thinking about the dynamics of this event, we see our lone star, the sun, at the center of our solar
Yeah.
system. And as you can see in the gradual images, the moon is eclipsing the sun, where you get to see these beautiful events like the diamond ring and
Yeah.
Bailey's beads, as they're known. So, just in terms of a narrative, just from the geography of where it was
Yeah.
set, I think that narrative just has to sell the image, quite frankly.
Oh
It was
yeah, for sure.
phenomenal.
Absolutely beautiful. I think that's one of my favorite ones of that because a lot of photographers tried to do the same thing, didn't they? But I think that's actually the coolest one because a lot of the ones I've seen, it's like perfect kind of like
Hmm.
things. But I love the sort of like flair that you've got going on here. It's absolutely stunning. There was something else I was going to say to that. But yeah, no. Oh, that was it. Gonna cut out that a little bit. I think one of the other coolest things that I saw from this particular point in time was the other side of it, where you see satellite imagery
Mm,
of it on Earth.
yeah,
So the moon, the shadow of the moon going on Earth. I
yeah,
mean, it, you're talking about kind of like the where it, understanding your place in the universe, right? And I think when looking at that and looking at the moon, just like
mm,
this thing that's like almost erasing the land as it goes,
yeah.
it's just completely and utterly mind blowing.
It really is. So when you see this satellite imagery coming in, I was in touch with quite a few photographers I've got friends with over in the States,
Yeah,
and we're all lined up along the path of totality. So some of them over towards Mexico, where totality would first hit,
yeah,
all the way up to Northern America. It was
yeah,
just insane. And so to think that we're all connected by effectively the moon shadow sweeping across the earth,
yeah.
it is honestly the best way I can describe one of these events. It feels like Armageddon. When day turns to night for a matter of minutes, the temperature drops, nocturnal wildlife comes to life as well, and you just see what feels like a piece of album artwork from a
Yeah.
David Bowie album there in the sky. It's just insane, really. It's
Speaking of Path of Totality, band name?
yes.
Yes, that would be. It probably already exists, but Path of Totality. I mean, like, there's
It's just
just
so
a lot of
dramatic,
really.
isn't it?
It is. You find that with a lot of Astro kind of like stuff. It's like, I don't even know half of it. You, of course, know like most of it, but like every time like something comes up, it's just like, that's a bad name. That's like, an Armageddon film, Path of Totality.
All right, well, I've got one for you then, Stuart. So
Okay.
if I was to say the Ring of Fire,
Yeah.
right? So there was a similar event which took place on October the 2nd last year,
Yeah.
and it was an event which only 5% of the world's landmass would see.
Yeah.
So it was known as an annular solar eclipse. This is when the moon appears just a bit smaller than the sun in its orbit,
Yeah.
and to capture it from the infamous Easter Island, so otherwise known as the locals as Rapa Nui. And from this
So it's this one.
particular,
Yeah.
that's the image, yes. So for that very reason, this path of annularity, as it's called, swept over the tectonic plate, which is the Pacific Ring of Fire, and then to get it from Easter Island, Rapa Nui as well. The story to this is extensive.
Yeah.
So this is the last dramatic solar eclipse that would take place over the island in over 312 years.
Yeah.
So if you didn't see it on October the 2nd, you have to wait 3 human lifetimes to see the next event like this from the island. And the fact that the obvious unique selling point to it is the Moai statues itself. But, just talking about the statue itself, to listen to my friends out there saying to me that this particular Moai, as they're known, these head statues, I think it's called Ahirenga.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, well, what does that mean in English? And so translated means fire, flames. And so there's already a direct link with the eclipse taking place through the motif on its neck, this tattoo work, which was visible. But also the image, this particular one, isn't too clear, but on his left shoulder is a carving of their god called Maki Maki.
Yeah.
From talking to my friends there, explained that this symbolism on the left shoulder is a prototype for the creation of future Moai statues. So before you know it, when you're learning about this story happening, it's intense. And you just think, wow, to watch the eclipse from there.
No, it's crazy.
Phenomenal.
And of course, when you're talking about our show, I think, and bringing it back down to the ground there,
Yes.
with there you go. But ancient cultures.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw it was Stonehenge, the photo you showed previous, yeah. So like, Stonehenge is aligned with the sun's kind of like arc in the sky, and the Egyptians used the stars to create where the pyramids are going to be, I believe, or something like that. It's crazy to see the kind of like fascination ancient cultures, and going into today to a certain extent has. Wales and West is, of course, back again this year, where you're going to get the chance to check out some awesome technology. Also, learn from some creative individuals about AI, astrophotography, social media, and everything else in between. Getting the chance to not only play, but also learn as well. And, well, just have a whole heap of fun. This is, of course, at the ICC down Newport, and make sure you book your tickets now between the 19th and the 21st of June. I'll see you there. With the stars.
It is. I can talk about Stonehenge forever, Stuart, but that particular place has a very close place in my heart.
Yeah.
So having bared witness to the astronomical alignments at Stonehenge, yes, Stonehenge itself as a monument is linked to the sun, but there's also a very strong correlation to the moon. And so right now, during this period of 2024 to 25, we are witnessing what is called the lunar standstills. And these are just interesting in themselves because these events, when the moon rises at its most extreme positions, happens every 18.6 years. And so with knowing this period of time, you're trying to capture these alignments, which, as far as we understand it, working academics as well, but they haven't previously been documented. So 2025 is a massive year to document something which I certainly won't see again until I'm 43.
Yeah, so you're a little bit busy this year.
Just a little bit busy, yes. It's all going on.
And kind of on that note, you got a photograph that's doing quite well right now. Do you want to explain that a little?
Yeah, sure. So right now, at the time of speaking, we are observing a really good planetary parade. So right now we can see up to 7 planets of our solar system in the night sky. So including ours, so that makes the total 8. I took this particular photograph a couple of weeks ago and, thought nothing of it. I thought this is what I want to capture in the night sky. And it turns out that this image could well be a world first. So to capture an image showing all the string of planets stretching through the night sky, annotated as well for visibility, only for then the likes of BBC World Service and CBS News in America to latch on to this. So whether it is a world record or not is still to be confirmed, but I think
that's still pretty.
It's phenomenal.
It's exciting. It's exciting, no, for sure. Yeah, so of course all 8 planets, and they're actually fully visible there as well, is
They
it?
are,
Yeah,
yes, some of them were. It's a different situation now because of the orbits of
yeah,
them. So, at the time of last week, Saturn is slipping ever closer to the Sun. So, this alignment that we observed a few days ago
yeah.
has since changed. The numbers have dropped. So, there was a really narrow window in time to observe the planetary parade. And the next one is in 2040 when only 5 will be visible. So, to be honest,
Mad.
this was the time to see it. It really was.
Oh, fair enough. So that's crazy. I bet you're just a little bit happy with that.
Just a little
Just
bit,
just
yes, it's
just
been
just a little
massive.
bit. So what's happening here?
Right, so this particular event, it's what's called an occultation
Yep.
event. So this involves the planet Mars.
Yeah.
So as you can see in the center of the image, we have a bright full moon.
Yeah.
And it was during this period in time when the planet Mars slipped behind the lunar disk.
Yeah.
So as opposed to using like a telephoto lens or teleconverters as we normally
Yeah.
use, I was using a good sized telescope with the camera attached with, a series of adapters and to capture the gradual sequence from beginning to end of this occultation
Yeah.
event from Somerset. So just
Mhm.
showing what are quite abstract images, but they tell this story of science.
So are you a little bit of a fan of science?
I am, yes, I'm very much a purveyor of astrophotography being this bridge between art, science, and culture.
Okay.
And so it branches off in lots of different avenues. So
Yeah.
we've already highlighted on it with the ancient connection and also what's happening, like with this image, the Northern Lights, how does it happen?
Yeah.
But I think one topic I would like to highlight on is the impact of light pollution
Yeah.
and what this is having really to light at night.
Yeah.
And so, as a delegate of Dark Sky International,
Yeah.
I use these images in the hopes of inspiring others
Yeah.
to provoke change because we've seen what's happening with the plastic crisis and what this is having to our environment and ourselves.
Yeah.
Light pollution, as far as I'm concerned, is the next growing trend. Right now, light sprawl is stopping a lot of people and the next generation,
Yeah.
unfortunately, seeing the stars, and that really it digs deep into my soul, that.
Mm.
And so by giving someone that chance to see this is what is capable in the natural world,
Yeah.
it just makes me think, well, that's why I do what I do.
Well, in that retrospect, I think that there'd be an interesting dynamic to discuss when it comes to, people who live in a rural area
Mm,
compared to people who live in a city area
yeah.
where they don't get to see the stars, at least it's not
Mm,
as much. And kind of like that kind of effect, I guess it kind of has on your psyche to a certain extent.
it does.
Because I feel like people in rural areas have the ability to really marvel at the skies.
Mm, yeah, you're
And you
very
don't really
true.
get too much of that in Cardiff. There's a few dark spots, but I
Mm,
mean,
yeah.
yeah,
It's tricky because where I'm based over in the Mendip Hills, I have just been very lucky from a young age to look up and see a quality night sky.
yeah,
But I appreciate for others when you go out, you might be able to see the brighter planets and the moon, certainly, but you may need to drive 10, 20 minutes to see your nearest dark sky.
yeah.
And so that is my hope that these images inspire others to say, look, we need to do something about light pollution, turn the lights off and start the conversation, get it rolling.
Mm. So, if we were on another planet,
Yes.
okay, how likely would it be that we would end up having an eclipse?
So there's different planets within our own solar system which observe eclipse events. So noticeably, and a trending topic now is the planet Mars.
Yeah,
So we have moons around Mars, but they're much different to our own.
yeah,
They're more rugged. They're not as spherical as we seem to see our own moon.
yeah,
So when you see these images coming in from NASA and ESA, it's just phenomenal to see something so unusual passing in front of the solar disk in
yeah,
such a way. Yeah, they do happen, but
yeah.
just in different ways.
Different ways, yeah,
Even on Jupiter as well, we have what are called transit events.
yeah.
So you can actually see shadows passing across on Jupiter of these particular moons.
Mm.
So if you could stand on the surface of Jupiter, you would watch an eclipse take place.
Oh.
So they do happen, but just in different degrees.
Might be a hard time to go to the surface of Jupiter.
I
I
think
hear
so.
it might be a little bit dense, I guess. But yeah. So what is the process? Where do you even start coming up with the idea of going to a place to take a photo?
Well, first
Because
of yeah, it's an interesting one with these. I think what is really important to address is your own subjects, your own passions and
yeah,
aspirations for photography. There's a lot of instances where I see repetitions in photography, and so what? If you like doing it, go out and do it.
yeah,
Other times, you may need to venture a bit further afield to really dive into your core as a photographer, as a storyteller, to think, how do I want to execute this image? So I'd say, as any visual creator, we do have to be creative,
yeah,
coming up with new ideas. So that's the first step. The second one with astrophotography is the weather, the quintessential British weather. How
hmm
do we get around that? So, on my phone alone, I've got over 10 weather apps which I use to
yeah,
monitor movements of the cloud. And sometimes you can use them and gain success. Other times it's a complete write off. It's
yeah,
trial and error, as I was taught. So once we establish that you've got a location in mind, then we get into the itty gritty of what it is we're trying to take photographs
yeah,
of. So then we could be using a wide lens, you may be using a telephoto. It all depends on your subject matter. And so again, it's almost like it's setting yourself a quiz. How am I going to set this out? Do this, do that. And then if you want to go even further, what advanced technologies do you want to use? If you want to get more detail out of the night sky, we might need to deploy star trackers
mm,
so that they track the position of the sky throughout the night to bring down these ISO
yeah,
levels and exposure sometimes
yeah.
to improve signal to noise ratio.
Because that's a big thing to work around is the noise in the sky as well. Because
Mm,
some cameras don't actually handle it very well. Some handle it
yeah.
best. In that respect, sliding into gear, what's your recommendation? Is it a high megapixel camera or a low megapixel camera or?
I think over personal preference, so it may not be for everybody, so I appreciate that. Just my own perspective is full frame. When you're shooting at night, you want to get as much details out of the stars as
Yeah,
possible, and so naturally equipped with a well adapted low light camera is what I'd advise.
yeah,
But then again, as a Sigma creator, I'm very fortunate to be working with
mm,
the cutting edge advances in lens
yeah.
technology. And so when you're trying out, for example, the 15mm diagonal fisheye lens,
Yeah.
this is honestly a world first purveyor, which is designed with astrophotographers at heart. It really is changing our views of the night sky.
Oh, that's fascinating. I've tried out the 15. Unfortunately, it was in the city, so in the day, so the chances of finding a star pretty hard. But I will say, and coming on the Sigma sort of like angle, their lenses are absolutely incredible.
They're nuts, aren't they?
I haven't
Positively nuts.
I haven't really found one that isn't just like just stupidly sharp.
It's incredible that when we look at what advanced technologies are built into these lenses, what I love about Sigma is they are really taking care and attention from an astrophotographic perspective.
Yeah,
As you know, when you're trying to focus on the stars, it can be tricky. If you're looking for a live view, when you're shooting at f1.4, you're letting this light come into the
yeah,
camera and you can do your fine tune focusing. But when you have a focus lock switch, that hasn't, as far as I've seen, been done very much.
no.
So to, really focus on down so that you keep the focus locked whilst you're shooting, it really just shows care and attention, craft, and each lens is like an art form of their own. It really
So
is.
is the 15 your favorite lens out of a lot of them, or
I'm
have you got
shooting
any
with
other
it,
ones?
yeah, I'm shooting a lot with it more so now. The one thing I would say is that, yes, okay, it might be £3 in weight, but to be honest, it's an essential part of my
Yeah.
camera kit now. I have to take it everywhere.
Yeah,
It's a good
well,
lens.
I think in this day and age, you got like kind of like two schools of thoughts. I guess it's just like we need lighter camera gear.
Hmm.
The other side of it is I actually kind of like the way I'd like to make.
Just about. Just about.
Camera Centre UK do both new, used, old cameras and everything else in between. So make sure you go over to cameracenteruk.com to check out the latest and greatest in camera technology, but also the old stuff as well. Anyway, let's continue. Like I like a camera to feel like it can take some damage,
Yeah.
especially when you're going to be, hiking through dark situations and all of this. I think it's important that the weight feels good and it feels like it can take a hit if it's going to take a hit.
Yes, exactly.
Um, but yes. So, Have you got any projects with Sigma coming up, or anything you're going to be doing next?
Yeah, so there's a lot coming up and things that are happening as we speak.
Mm.
So right now, as of last week, I'm delighted to announce that I debut as a published author. So with
Oh,
52 assignments, night photography,
yeah,
and it's been designed with that craft which I talked about at the beginning of the podcast,
yeah,
which is I want to inspire others to look up and photograph the night sky.
yeah.
So 52 assignments, one assignment a week if you like, and you work through with the beginnings of taking
So it's not
images.
actual gallery book; it's a tutorial.
It's a tutorial based book,
Oh,
and so whether you're a budding enthusiast or a professional
yeah,
photographer, it's taking you on that journey, your own personal journey,
yeah,
to connect with the stars. So before you know it, fingers crossed, you'll be
yeah.
taking your own images of the aurora to eclipses as well.
Oh,
So yeah, very exciting times and hitting major bookshelves as well. So
oh,
very exciting
exciting!
things.
Yeah, I remember you when we had a meeting the other day. I remember you talking about it. Super exciting.
Very
Can you
exciting
say where it's
things.
going, or?
Yes, I am. So it's being launched in Waterstones, WH Smith's, Barnes and Noble, so over in the US.
Yeah.
So that'll be stocked from September and hitting the shelves in the UK
Oh,
from April.
exciting. So why should people be astrophotographers then?
I think it's really to advance the dark spot. Can I say that again? Sorry,
Yeah,
I
that's fine.
scuppered. I think really it's to advance the dark sky movement. Astrophotography right now is a growing trend, and with good reason alone. That's why I want to bring up astrophotographer Alan Wallace.
Mm,
He certainly inspired me as an astrophotographer many years ago,
yeah,
and he set out a legacy and a mission, which is we inspire more people to look up and appreciate the night. And so, from my background as a night sky conservationist, I believe if we inspire more people to want to take images of the sky, the more people we can say,
yeah,
look, we need to turn the lights off and really begin the change.
yeah.
Mm.
Sounds good. Of
Deep
course,
stuff.
deep, deep stuff. And Alan Wallace, legend amongst men, really.
He really was.
Um, yeah, God rest his soul. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Camera gear.
Yes,
Do you use a camera?
I do use a camera
Do
in
you?
different ways,
In different
yes.
ways. What camera do you have?
So I shoot different ones. So in my camera bag, A7 II and 3,
Okay.
and I say to myself, you know what? It doesn't matter what camera you've got, as long as you've got a sound awareness on how to use it, because it
Yeah.
is like your own. What do I want to say? Your own ergonomics of how you use
Yeah.
one, and so I keep those mainly in my camera bag, and also a Canon 5D Mark III.
Yeah.
Yes, it may be a slightly older model. I appreciate that, but I think the quality is still there, especially
Yeah.
when we want to be shooting solar and lunar
Yeah.
events.
Well, I feel like the 5D, I think 5D3, 2 as well, to a certain extent. Those cameras will go down in history as some of the best cameras that were at that particular time. I mean, these
Yes.
days you can pick up a 5D3
Mm.
for 500, 700
Today's
quid.
standards, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I think we got a 5D4 at the moment for 800 quid.
Wow.
That's mental.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
it's absolutely crazy because I remember
Back
when
in
I
the day.
back in the day when I worked as like a salesman in the store. These cameras were going for like 2,000,
Yeah.
3,000, and it's just like it's crazy, and it's one of the cameras that everyone kind
Mm.
of wants to get. And I don't. I honestly feel like now is the time to get into photography because like technology has advanced so far that
Yeah.
especially photography,
Yeah.
some of these pieces of tech,
Mm.
um, you know, they've got to the point where they're old, but they can still take incredible images, and there's
Yeah.
nothing really wrong with them.
Yeah.
And you
I
can pick
agree.
them up for the price of a beginner camera
Yeah.
with,
100%.
and you don't have to worry about having the AI in the camera or whatever.
Mm.
But
Yeah, I know. That's another story, isn't it?
well, it's like everyone's just saying AI just for the fun of it, and yeah, we actually did a podcast with somebody talking about that, and it was interesting because we're talking about this is probably I tell you this now maybe I don't know, but she was talking about the fact that companies will actually be choosing to be AI free as a way to
Mm.
sell their product,
Mm.
which I think is an interesting point of view
Yeah.
because I think AI it's it's just what it is. It's gonna get far worse than it is now. Well, far better than it is
Mm,
now. But also, I don't think it has the experience. I mean, if you have a look at your work,
mm.
yes, AI might be able to create Starscape, but will it understand the intricacies of what
Mm.
you're talking about?
Well, I think this goes into another parallel. So, as far as astrophotography is concerned, I can relate to music artists.
Yeah,
There's an image further up on my website which I titled Starstruck, which captured the pyramid stage at Glastonbury Festival.
yeah,
And so, for this image to be endorsed by Kate Bush herself
yeah,
and Grace Jones, they just so happened to inspire me in my days of,
yeah,
learning about photography,
yeah,
that I have seen now a statement by music photographers
yeah.
or over, music artists themselves about the protection, there it is,
This one.
of their work. And so,
Yeah,
even to be producing LP records of silent studios
yeah,
to protect their music against AI is
yeah,
upcoming, unfortunately,
yeah.
and dare I say it, misleading. I
Mm,
have seen images of AI generated astrophotography content, and I'm seeing repetitions of the galactic core more than twice, three
yeah,
times in an image. And if someone looks at it and thinks that is the expectation of what to see,
yeah.
and to say any astrophotographer's work could be manipulated in such fashion,
Mm,
it is of vital concern. And I am a purveyor that any creator, our work needs to be
yeah.
protected against this technology.
And on that kind of note, I think again, this is kind of more of a, a very kind of like a tangent. Welcome to the world of tangents. Um, is I honestly think sites like YouTube,
Mm,
maybe probably need to not have that just in case it doesn't show up anywhere, but sites like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, I think they are going to end up losing people
mm,
to platforms that promote an AI free kind of area.
mm, mm.
Because at the moment we're constantly having this fight of it's kind of like what is real.
Mm.
And we shouldn't necessarily have that. We should be able to trust something.
Yeah, we should.
Um,
But unfortunately, that isn't always the case with images. Even when you have criticism about how an image was taken, and
yeah,
there's that necessity to almost have to reveal how you took it.
yeah,
When it's all taken within the imaging session, that should be enough to justify it. However, when I see an image of Glastonbury Tour with an image of the Aurora superimposed from Iceland or Norway,
yeah,
there are photographers like myself who can establish how it was done.
yeah.
And again, it's just that expectation. The whole point of taking these images, as I said, is to inspire others so you know what you can really see in the night sky.
Inspire others to look up.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the most
definitely.
important things to kind of like take away from it. So, you're going to be at Wales and West this year.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah, you're just going to
Glad to
turn up and
join.
do stuff, just check out stuff, or are you going to be doing something else?
I'm very excited to be doing a talk for you guys on June the 19th.
Okay.
So I'll be creating a voice for astrophotography and the dark sky movement to hopefully inspire more of you to look up and photograph the realm that is our cosmos.
And I must admit, like through just speaking with you, and of course, seeing all of your work, you are an incredibly fascinating human being.
Oh, that's
That's
very
said
kind
in a
words.
weird way, I guess, but no, incredibly fascinating. And your work, I mean, it just speaks for itself, really. Of course, I'm going to be there, Wales and West Photography Show from the 19th to the 21st. If you're going to catch anybody, this guy, you're going to be able to, see the cosmos.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm expecting you to come on with like a like one of the documentary kind of accents. It's like, "Hello, I am Josh Dury, and we are going to experience the cosmos together
We
here
can
at
do
Wales
that
and
if you like
West."
to, Stuart. We can
Yeah,
plug
I
that
mean,
bit in.
we can give it a go. Put a projector on the ceiling and just have like, yeah, that'd be cool. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I think we've highlighted on most things. I don't know if you wanted to mention like filters, Nisi, Star Glow filters, and
Oh, of
that
course.
vibe
Yeah, no,
potentially.
we're
Yeah,
kind of talking about gear there,
yeah. Whatever you
briefly.
want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So of course, when it comes to doing astro, it's not just putting a lens on a camera, is it?
No,
What else is there?
it's much bigger. So, as astrophotographers, when we're taking images during our imaging sessions, we look for new creative ways to take images. And the first one is the constellations. When you're focusing on the stars and you're taking single exposures, it's quite difficult to reveal the quality of the stars within them.
Yeah.
And so, a way of getting around this is by using diffuse filters, or otherwise now known as star soft filters. And so I use these in with some of the latest adapters made by Nisi as an ambassador to
Yeah.
put these filters in front of Sigma lenses to create these visual effects. And
Yeah.
so whilst you deploy this, stars appear much brighter, the constellations much more visible, and create beautiful dreamy nightscapes as well.
Which, you know, is just another part of just, you know, the love of it all. One final question. Is there any advice that you would give to somebody looking to start out doing this? Because, of course,
Mm,
this is what you do. You don't really
mm,
do anything else, I'm assuming.
mm,
So getting into doing photography, landscape astrophotography, you
mm.
know, what advice would you give somebody looking to start out doing that?
So, for any budding enthusiast or photographer that's just about to begin their journey, the first bit of advice I would give to any photographer is not to be put off by numbers and competition. It's so easily done. You look through social media, and the numbers can startle you,
Yeah,
quite frankly. And so, when you rule that out, I always say remain true to yourself.
yeah,
Think about the stories that you want to tell, and it's that which is going to make you unique as a photographer.
yeah,
And also, I think being really closely connected with your subject, building that relationship is so vital. And once you have these foundations in place,
yeah.
then before you know it, you'll be building your own profile as a photographer. So fingers crossed for you.
Sorted.
Yes.
Um, I did see a video. This is the last thing that I'm bringing up right now.
That's cool.
Where somebody took a multiple exposure on film with a film.
Mm,
Have you seen that video?
I believe so, yes.
What do you think of that? It's mental to be able to actually form
Yeah.
that sort of same sort of like eclipse like thing
Mm,
on film.
yeah.
What do you think of it?
Oh, it kind of brings me back to that conversation of how far has astrophotography developed.
Yeah,
When we see images taken on negative slides by Edwin Hubble himself
yeah,
of the Andromeda galaxy, one of the most famous galaxies of the night sky, and we now see what is being achieved with the James Webb. And so, as far as that video is concerned, where we're seeing layering of images, it's almost like history repeating
yeah,
itself. So, whether we're stacking images or the images are taken during that imaging session, again, it's justification of how the images are taken to make you appreciate the level of craft that goes into producing these style of images.
yeah.
Hmm.
Talking about craft. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more. Man, it's been a genuine pleasure.
I
Thank
know.
you for blowing my mind with space today. I look forward to seeing you there, and perhaps meet up and do some stuff in the
Yes,
future. It'd be really
definitely.
cool to go on a hike or something and
Yeah,
get some astro stuff.
that'd be
But
awesome.
awesome. Thank you,
Brilliant.
man.
Thank you for
Cool.
having me.